Welcome.
And this is MIFV Special Report number 3.
And this is another episode of the Cel Cast.
Shorts.
Although I don't know how short this is going to be.
Our shorts episodes are never short.
Yeah, they never are. Although this will probably be a little bit shorter than normal for all of our shows. Sure, Jimmy. Well, yeah. It's too bad you're here because you scared D-Lit away. It just, yeah.
She just dropped us off and then left. We don't know what happened.
I get turned into something.
Yeah,
this time.
Yeah, this time. Yeah, weird things happen to all of us all the time, fellas.
Yes,
but yeah,
agreed.
Yeah. But I had to do this.
Yes. That was my dress. And it's on my show. Sorry, I've been waiting 5 years for that.
Sorry, Dave, that was really loud, though.
He turned into dog for a second. That is the great way to transition.
Oh, no,
that's a great way to transition because we're talking about the Skull Island, air quotes up to the mic, anime.
Yeah,
opinions. Opinions. Well, on Netflix, I'm like, okay, I didn't know it was even going to drop because in true Netflix fashion, they told everybody, hey, we're going to finally release the show we haven't talked about for like 2 years in 3 weeks or whatever, in a month. And I'm like, wait, what? Oh, okay. So this is why it's a special report. The first special report I did was an experiment. The second one was a gag. So, I don't know how often these are going to happen, but yeah. So we're talking.
Whereas these shorts for me and Jacob are just random episodes that seem to be cover whatever random subject we want to talk about.
Yes, for sure. And I'm like, okay, it's an animated series. I got to get the Cel Cast guys in on this because they are my animation experts.
Although I guess to some degree this could be a reaction too.
This is also true.
Reaction. This is more reaction.
So
reaction. Sure.
We're changing the title. I am altering the deal. Yeah. Pray I do not alter it any further. You're welcome, Jimmy. Where's that? I'm altering the title. Pray I do not alter it any further. That makes more sense. Anyway. Yeah, right? Yeah. So I'm going to get through some, as you guys would call it, info and stuff. But, I'll be spearheading this a little bit. So this is okay. First off, I just want to point out that Netflix is calling this an anime. If I might get on a little bit of a soapbox, I do not consider this an anime because for me, it has to be from Japan to be anime because there's an intangible thing if it's produced in Japan that American animes just don't have. So I don't consider them that. So sorry, people. I don't think Avatar: The Last Airbender qualifies as anime, even though it looks a lot like an anime.
This is why I always call it anime styled.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, because it's obviously aping the style of anime, but there's enough Americanisms in it. Yeah. Yes, aping.
Actually, Jimmy, you wanted this button. There.
Either way.
Yeah. And anyway, you were saying?
It's also an homage to the anime style. It has the style and somewhat of the feel to it, but it doesn't have the gusto or the prominence of it.
That is if you mix it with the animation style of Godzilla the series.
Yeah, well, we'll unpack that a little bit when we get into a proper discussion. But this was a Netflix anime released June 22nd, 2023. So, it's taken a little it's taken a little bit of effort to get all of our schedules to line up. I was wanting to get this released as close to the release of it as I could.
Understandable.
Yeah. And it's
that we already had plans for the 4th of July.
Yeah, we all did. And this was produced by Legendary Television because it's part of the MonsterVerse, although I think its place in the MonsterVerse is dubious, but we'll get into that. And the animation was done by Powerhouse Animation, who's done several projects for Netflix, most notably the Castlevania show. And they did that revival of Masters of the Universe that was incredibly divisive, like most modern revivals are. So, we'll just leave it at that. That's a can of kaiju worms, or in this case, a can of graboids I do not feel like opening.
But they're also the ones that have done like all the 2D animation for Sonic the Hedgehog in the last couple of years.
And they have also done animation for the Dawn of the Monsters video game. So they've done other kaiju projects.
Yes.
And Dawn of the Monsters is a fantastic game, in case anyone was wondering. So just thought I would bring that up. So here's the thing. This was announced in 2021, and then we didn't really hear anything for it. The writer, writer, creator, executive producer, director, showrunner, he wears basically all the hats. His name was Brian Duffield. I had to look this guy up because, opinions. And I found out that this gentleman has actually worked on something else that, even if you don't consider it kaiju, it's at least kaiju adjacent, that being Love and Monsters, the 2020 film. And Underwater. But I haven't seen Underwater, but from my kaiju podcast friends have told me Underwater is technically kaiju.
Yeah, that's one with Kristen Stewart.
Is it? Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah. So, knowing that...
I'm looking through his IMDb right now, and I am not impressed.
Yeah, other than Love and Monsters. I've seen Love and Monsters. Love and Monsters is actually pretty good.
I mean, the fact that he wrote the Divergent series...
Oh, excuse me. He wrote Love and Monsters. He didn't direct it. Correction. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he wrote it. So, which, again, opinions. So, but there wasn't anything.
Opinions will be spread around tonight.
That's true. He also produced Cocaine Bear.
He did.
Cocaine Bear.
Yeah, he produced that.
Oh boy,
that exists.
Yeah,
that is a thing that exists.
That is a thing.
That is a thing.
Watch Winnie the Pooh, Blood and Honey.
God help me if I have a patron who decides to tries to sponsor Cocaine Bear. But yeah, so like I said, it was announced in January 2021. There was basically nothing on it. Like, I think the most we got was a teaser poster of a Kong footprint on the beach of Skull Island. That was it.
And that's about as generic as anything you can do with this stuff.
Disappears after that.
And I am not 100% convinced that this wasn't originally a non-MonsterVerse project that they tried to shoehorn into the MonsterVerse. Because
I can see it maybe being like a King Kong project.
Yeah, because Kong does have 1 foot in public domain.
Yeah. There's at least that, because I know there's actually, isn't there like a Disney Plus show based on Kong? That's still
they're trying to get it made, yeah.
So, I mean, I could see that, and then they got Legendary in on it, and so they tried to make it fit in, but
we'll get into it. We'll get into it, because it's supposed to take place in the 90s. So it's between Kong Skull Island. That's the other problem with this, is now I have to make a distinction between Skull Island, the TV show, and Kong Skull Island, the movie. So it's between that and Godzilla 2014, and they never say it takes place in the 90s, because I'm going to be honest with you, none of these characters act like they're living in the 90s.
No.
The technology barely registers as 90s. And supposedly, from what I was reading, it's supposed to be 1992, 1993, thereabouts. I'm like, you did a terrible job communicating that.
Yeah.
Also,
this could have happened at any time.
It really could have. Also, I'm seeing on here on IMDb that another production studio that helped out with this was something called Tractor Pants.
That's got to be like the audio studio that did that recorded the audio.
Maybe.
The acting. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, voice acting.
Yeah.
Voice acting, yes. Thank you.
So, and then just some other quick nuggets to mention here. And this is something I did observe while watching it. The episodes were produced in a 1:78:1 aspect ratio, but all of the flashbacks were 2 39:1. So they are even more widescreen.
Well, yeah, one's more your standard television dimensions. The other is cinematic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. But other than that, I can't find, at least with a quick cursory search, I can't find too much information on the production of the show. It just hasn't come up, near as I can tell. But it is the first traditionally animated King Kong series since Kong the Animated Series from 2001. Mm-hmm. There is a CGI show on Netflix, but nobody talks about it because it's terrible.
I looked up what else that Tractor Pants studio did to try and figure out what they did. And the only other thing they've worked on is the new Tomb Raider show.
Oh, boy.
But they just appear to be post-production, so.
Oh, boy.
That shouldn't tell you much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
only two things they've done so far.
Yeah.
But anyway,
like I said, I can't find a whole lot about it. Little bits of trivia here and there that we'll probably get into while we're talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wish there was some more, but to do a quick rundown on the cast we have here. So our main cast members are Nicholas Cantu, I hope I said that right, as Charlie. Mae Whitman as Annie. Oh boy. But Mae Whitman actually has a pedigree, a pretty extensive pedigree. In both live action and animation, she has voiced Batgirl in a few DC projects. She was one of the evil X's in Scott Pilgrim versus the World. I can't remember her name. I think it was Roxy something.
It was Roxy Richter.
Roxy Richter, that's right. So that's actually how I know her. I also know her because she was the president's daughter in Independence Day, and I just rewatched that with my family. So I was looking up her filmography. I was like, oh, man, she's done a lot of stuff. She was in an episode of Godzilla the series. It's like all these things. Oh, this is actually kind of cool. You got a lot of stuff. And this show.
Yes.
This show.
We'll get to that.
Yeah. And then we have Darren Barnett as Mike. Those are our three main characters. You could honestly call them Teenage Kennys.
Pretty much.
We'll get into that. Benjamin Bratt as Cap. I don't know why he's listed as a main cast member here on Wikipedia because he's only in one episode. Betty Gilpin as Irene.
Most of the episodes.
Yeah, he'd be like, he's in most of them.
Yeah, that's Charlie's
Cap.
dad.
Not okay. I'm thinking of a
You're
different
thinking
guy.
of Hero.
Yeah,
that's
right. Yeah, Cap is the
Hero's
dad.
in one
Cap is the
episode.
dad.
Yeah,
Cap is the dad. Phil Lamar as Sam, and then. I don't know if it's Frida or Frida, but it's Fryda.
I think it's Frida.
Probably Frida. Frida Wolf as Island Girl. Couldn't bother
Best
to give
character.
her a name.
Yeah, agreed.
Really, guys? And then Tanya Gunati as Islander. I don't even know which one that is. There were a lot of those guys.
Exactly.
You miss John DiMaggio as Crybaby Merc. Bender was in this thing.
Because I don't know if that was meant to be funny or in very poor taste.
I don't know either.
The most confusing part for me is Thomas Tull is listed as an executive producer, and I don't know if that was just because they usually put his name on anything MonsterVerse, because I don't think he's been involved with Legendary since King of the Monsters 2019.
Maybe he had something to do with it early on before he left.
That's the only thing I can think. That's the only thing I can think of. But anyway, it was 8 episodes, mercifully short. And spoiler warning, they're only about 1.5 of them are good.
In our opinion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because apparently critical opinion disagrees with us.
I don't trust the critics anymore.
I haven't trusted the critics since I was very little.
As you should.
Except us. Listen to us. We're good critics.
Yes. Apparently. We know what we're talking about. I will have none of that from you, Jimmy. Just do not doubt my powers of criticism. Anyway, I don't know what we... I'm trying to figure out how we would do a plot synopsis for this. I will just read the official description for this because we're going to unpack all the details of this. I don't normally do this, but here we go. So, the official description reads as thus: a new chapter in Legendary's MonsterVerse franchise. Skull Island is a thrilling animated adventure series that follows shipwrecked characters desperate to escape the most dangerous place on Earth, a mysterious island home to prehistoric monsters, including the greatest titan of them all, Kong.
I have some issues with some adjectives in that.
Yeah. Also, that's... I hate to break it to you guys, but that is basically every Skull Island story ever.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's the Skull Island movie. People get stranded on island, want to get off island. So I guess we'll talk. That'll be all right.
Except the movie was better.
Yes, but okay.
I didn't like the film.
I should
have issues with the film too.
Yeah. Well, it's you mean the movie or the show? I'm confused.
No. We were saying the movie was better than the show. Yeah. And we both have problems with the movie.
Got it. Anyway, so since we're already there, I should mention this. We are going to be borrowing from our friend Ben Avery over at Strangers and Aliens and Welcome to Level 7, among other podcasts. So I guess with apologies to Ben Avery, we will be stealing his little analysis quadrant that he likes to use on a lot of his podcasts. So we will be talking about this anime in terms of its plot, character, style, and theme. And we're already talking about the plot. So let's get into it with the plot. So
yes. Yeah.
I was going to be honest with you. I knew even before they were announcing details for this, that I already knew. I was like, I know what, if you're calling it Skull Island, I already know what the story is. People get stranded on Skull Island, will have to get off the island. That is, that's the original Kong. That's actually most Kong movies. Basically. So, if only for a little while.
Admittedly, I did not pay attention to the lead up on this at all. Mm-hmm. So when I watched the trailer, I was kind of hoping, maybe this is explaining Monarch setting up the big base that we see in Godzilla versus Kong. No. I thought that's what we were getting.
No, it's just the same story you get in, like I said, in most Kong. Even if it's not the entire movie, it's still a part of it. People get on the island, want to get off it. Because... trust me, I've talked to the scientists here on Monster Island. Everything on Skull Island wants to kill you. Everything. Right. Mm-hmm. If you find something friendly on Skull Island, it's probably only going to be friendly for about 5 minutes.
And then it's going to try to eat you.
Of course.
You look tasty.
Because you are tasty and go good with ketchup. I don't know. Yeah, but
hot sauce on top of it.
Skull Island ketchup made from real ketchup bugs.
I don't know if those are real, but I will talk to someone to find out. But so here's the thing.
Oh, I have no idea.
Yeah,
probably.
So
maybe do.
But here's the thing. Even if it is the same plot you would expect, where the show could have excelled was in the details.
Mm-hmm. Yes, agreed.
That's what if you're going to use that kind of a story, you have to make the details work. Why are they stranded on the island? Well, is there other things going on the island? We'll get into the characters later, but it's like that's where you have to excel. To use a shout out to my friends Nick and Tim over on Derailed Trains of Thought, because they talk about the show all the time. That's what made the show Lost interesting. We've seen plenty of stories about people get stranded on an island. Well, what made Lost so compelling, one, was the characters, and two, weird things are going on all the time on the island, so there's this big mystery. And that is a part where I do think this show stumbles, because they rarely do that.
They barely have enough time to do anything the way this thing is plotted out, because every couple minutes something is attacking them, which makes sense. Yeah, that should be happening on this island, but there's never really a break anywhere in this story until episode 7.
Yeah, everything's at a fast clip,
right? Yeah. So they don't even know what's happening to each other most of the time, much less us keeping up with it.
Yeah. Right.
So,
which is why episode 7 really stands out, because it is completely different from the rest of the show. And
yes. We'll get to praising that one here in a minute.
Yeah, yes. I mean, I don't know which category we're gonna. I mean, what makes it work? I'm gonna
bring it up in style because I figure that's where I can talk about animation.
Yeah. It's just like when I got to episode 7, all I kept thinking is, why isn't the whole show like this?
Yes, exactly.
Yes. Why isn't the whole show like this? Because it has actual pathos. I am invested in the characters. It's Kong-centric. That's the other problem that this has.
Yeah, Kong's in 3 episodes.
Kong is not in it nearly enough.
Kong is in 3 episodes, and when he's not on screen, he is not present in your mind. You're never asking, where is Kong?
Yeah.
Other
than, I'm watching a Skull Island show. Where is Kong?
Yeah. Now he makes his.
They're constantly they're never constantly being protected or attacked by Kong. So he's just there.
Yeah. Granted, he's out of sight, out of mind.
Granted, he seems depressed through most of this,
and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
But at the same, anyway, we'll get there.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there a little bit later. But I do think that was a misstep there. I do think Kong should have had more of a presence. If your goal was to make this character driven, I understand that. Mm-hmm. You may not necessarily want Kong in there all the time. You don't want to overplay Kong. I get it.
But then your individual episode kaiju threats need to be bigger than they are.
Yeah.
That's the other issue. Most of these, they just feel like regular alien animals, basically.
Yeah, because you had the
kaiju.
Yeah. The crabs on the beach, weirdly enough, I've seen a movie that was kind of like that. There was a time I was working for a publication. It's not really around anymore, called Giga Geek Magazine. And I don't even remember what the name of the movie was, but it was basically like Tremors on the beach. But it was like these, it was this, I can't remember what it was, but it was like these weird creatures that hid under the sand. And if they heard something on the ground, they would jump up and grab it. But it wasn't like, they weren't like worms or anything. Almost like these thread creatures that would just come up and just grab people. It was weird, but so you've got these crab monsters, and then there was one with the croc.
Mm-hmm.
Even though I've heard some people say they call it a croc, but it's not really a croc if you understand animal anatomy.
It's closer to an alligator than a crocodile.
Closer to an alligator. Yeah. I will admit that was probably the most, that chase with it was pretty exciting. Yeah. Although there's some glaring animation errors in it, unfortunately.
Oh yeah, but at least what they called the croc, it was at least smart enough and at least threatening enough. That they couldn't get away from it fast enough.
Yeah. Right,
and it was unlike so many of the others.
Right now,
Big Bird.
Now there are hints at Kong throughout, but I did feel like Kong needed a stronger presence in there.
Yeah.
Because
also I have some logistical questions. I did not understand the way that place was set up, but we'll get to that.
Yeah, well, join the club. Skull Island, it's just the topography of Skull Island never entirely makes sense in here. And so anyway, so there's a bit of a build up to Kong, and it was when he was on screen, it was worthwhile, but he needed to be on there more. The other thing that they were building toward, almost more than Kong, really, was his kaiju foe in this, which I think people have taken to calling it the Kraken.
They call it the Kraken because that's what's written on the concept art that Duffield put on there.
Yeah.
I, on the other hand, prefer to call it Octoshrimp.
Octoshrimp, which I don't blame it there. Or maybe they could have, if they really wanted to be classy about this, they could have called it like Scylla or Charybdis. I would have.
Yes,
that would have made me happy, because I'm that kind of a guy. But
at least they didn't try to call it Ebera or something similar.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked, and that's one heck of a mutated Ebera. That's all I have to say.
Yeah,
Ebera and I can't remember the giant octopus that was on Faroe Island.
Yeah. But the one that was a live octopus on
live octopus. Well, there were 2 of them, and AG Super ate one.
Ate one of them, yes.
Yeah. He ate one of his special effects.
Well, when you get the chance.
Nom,
Yeah.
nom, 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 nom.
And besides,
And then
he probably just went down to the local fish market to pick those two octopus up.
I'm sure. But here's the thing, though. We talk about how episode 7 is great because it is so very different from the rest of the show.
Mm-hmm.
But here's the thing that dawned on me. That episode is almost completely divorced from everything else. It exists just for the audience. What happens in that episode has almost no effect on the characters in the present.
I am half convinced, even though I have no proof, that had to have been like a short that they made to shop the idea around. And then when Netflix and Legendary bought into it, they made the rest of the show around that instead of making it based on that.
Yeah, the only thing I could think of,
because it's an entirely different setup.
I agree. They also tie in episode 8 with that, with like, oh, I know how to get Kong to do this. But it's just out of left field that one of our beloved characters just knows how to do this. Charlie knows about it because he was in the temple.
He was.
But how you tell this whole story and then end it with Charlie saying, well, I saw this necklace in there he really liked. We ought to go steal it. That'll get him down to the beach.
Yeah. Okay. I'm sorry.
You just gave me this whole story that broke my heart. This beautifully animated piece of cinematography.
Yeah.
And you have to end the episode with the stupidest line in the show?
Yeah.
Oh, you mean our favorite character laughing? What a buzzkill. But that's the thing. When you get to the end, I like the climax. It's a good kaiju fight, and it makes sense. One thing that's I will give the plotting of this some credit is they established that there is even though this is an overused trope in the MonsterVerse so far, there is a rivalry between Kong and the Kraken because they will not venture onto each other's turf. Kong will not go in the water, and the Kraken will not leave the water.
Mm-hmm.
And they basically
really can't leave the water.
That is true.
Yeah. But what's fun is that they kind of taunt each other. And I will admit, I think it's in like episode 4 or 5. Shout out to Ryan Collins, the Omni viewer. # throw the whale.
Yes, that was epic.
Yeah.
I'm watching that going, I thought I understood what this show was, but that's a whale.
Yeah.
That's a whale.
Yeah, and the Omni viewer was saying, is that what kaiju fans are just going to say to each other from now on when they want to challenge each other instead of like throwing down the gauntlet? It's # throw the whale. I need that to become a thing. Like that's the one good thing we can get out of the show is
when that moment happened, my literal first thought was, okay, we in the past have said when a property is starting to go downhill that it's jumped the shark. When something so ridiculous happens on screen it kills anything the movie was trying to do is nuking the fridge. Is throw the whale the next thing? Is it the next step in this?
I'm wondering. Keep your whale anyway. Yeah, good Lord. With producers like you.
And the line that always comes to mind is like the famous movie Twister back in the 90s, that cow, another cow.
No, I think that's the same cow.
I see, and that's what makes it frustrating. There are a lot of writing issues in this. The biggest problem that this show has is the scripts. Yeah, and the plotting in it. They found, I couldn't believe it. It's like the plot in this is pretty simple and straightforward, and they still found ways to screw it up. Yeah. But then it has these flashes of brilliance, like episode 7, the final, the climactic kaiju fight.
Oh yeah.
Well, throw the whale. Like it has these flashes, but it's
even
not enough.
Annie's backstory where she meets Dog is done well.
Yeah, we'll get into that. I will admit that flashback was also pretty effective, but once I saw that flashback, not only did it not accomplish what it was trying to do, which was generate some sympathy, it also confused me because I'm like, I don't see how the character went from that to this. But anyway, do we have any more thoughts on the plot? I think we've unpacked that pretty well.
Outside of the plot having its issues, it's a standard plot, and it's I don't know, it's nothing to write home about.
Yeah. I think it's meant to be a bit of
it's a good setup for a better story along the way.
Right.
But
well,
part of me doesn't want another story to come.
Right.
So.
Yeah. Looking at my notes here, I do think we didn't mention this. I do think this was also intended to be it was also intended to be a coming of age story because we have teenage characters in this, 2 boys in particular. And I think this was meant to be like this adventure that they go on where they get ripped right out of their comfort zone and they basically go from being boys to men, not the band, but you know what I mean? And I don't think that was entirely accomplished either. And then the ending is weird. The actual ending is weird.
If this is supposed to be a coming of age story, they didn't come of age.
No.
They're still the same. There was no character growth in this. So
no. And then, like I said, okay, let's talk about this a little bit. The ending in this is incredible. Like I said, is really weird.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because
it's sequel baiting.
It's sequel baiting
because there is no ending.
There's no real ending because it goes from, oh, we're on Skull Island. Oh, Kong just killed the Kraken in a very Mortal Kombat-ish way because that's what the MonsterVerse does, where he just rips the dang thing in half over his head because that's what you do. And then suddenly
Amy gets her head hit on a rock, and they now conveniently don't have to animate anything while she heads to New York or wherever.
Yeah, because she wakes up in a hospital. Yeah,
and so we don't know what happened to Cap or to Mike or to Charlie.
Yeah, because the quote unquote Islanders, the Islanders show up, and I don't know if they're supposed to be the Iwi or not. If those are the Iwi got really different.
Yeah, why are they speaking English?
That too. I have so many unanswered questions. That's the one thing I have to ding even episode 7 about, because I'm like, if these are the Iwi are really different in this compared to the Skull Island movie. Or even the comic books. You see, because you see the Iwi a little bit in some of the tie-in comic books. I don't get it.
There's a lot about this show I don't get.
Yes.
Yeah, I just... Anyway, so we'll move on to... you were itching to talk about style, so we'll go to style next.
So yeah, animation-wise, I would call this 2.2D vector art for the most part. Yeah, it's not cell animation because it's not on cells. For episodes 1 through 6, I'd say the animation is competent. It's not really pushing anything. It's doing its job, and it's not doing anything special.
Yeah.
8 is, I will give 8 some props in that they tried to do some hard stuff. Yeah. Especially after they steal the necklace and you have that shot of them running towards the camera while the landscape is going back. That's a tough thing to do in animation, especially 2D animation. But they didn't quite do it good enough because they didn't vary the distance between the camera and them and the characters. So it really does look like a Super Nintendo game, but with better graphics. But episode 7.
Yes.
Oh my word. That is an animation masterwork in my opinion.
I think just for that episode, watching episode 7 is worth it. Just like don't even watch the rest of it. Just load up episode 7 and enjoy this nice.
Load up episode 7 and then skip the last 30 seconds.
Once you see they only said resolution. That's not what that's called. The aspect ratios start to change. Shut it off.
Yeah.
Once the black bars go away, just shut it off. You don't need to see those last couple seconds.
No, like you have so much depth in like how they animate. Kong's expressions and how.
Oh my gosh, that was so good in that.
So good. Oh my gosh,
it was so good. And again, I was like, why isn't the whole show like this? Yeah,
I would have killed for this entire show to be Island Girl and Kong going on adventures.
Yes.
I would have loved that. You could even keep her speaking whatever the native language is she's speaking there.
I'm not entirely sure. It sounds almost like French or Spanish.
I was thinking Spanish, but it was just different enough. I was like, you know what? I'm not even going to guess.
Yeah.
But keep it like that, because that's the thing is you don't even need the dialogue we get, even though it's translated.
Yeah.
It's subtitled. You don't need it because you understand everything that's going on screen.
Yeah, I think that episode has the least amount of dialogue too.
Yeah,
but it's because it doesn't need it.
It doesn't. It's very visual.
You get the whole story just on animation alone.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my word.
Yeah. Now,
so granted, I love that line. I love at the beginning that line where she says, "You're not a king. You're just a stupid old ape.
You're just a stupid animal."
Stupid
which
animal.
comes back later, and we'll get to. I think we can get to that when we talk about the characters.
Yeah,
but I will tell you,
like that whole plot, not plot, but that whole style of that animation. That's like, oh my word, this is what the show needed to be.
Right. Because we hinted at it at the beginning. It's got anime influence for sure.
It does.
But if you look at what else Powerhouse has done, there's definitely an anime influence. They also have a lot of American flair to what they've done. I've not watched Castlevania or the Masters of the Universe thing. I have played Dawn of the Monsters, so I'm familiar with their work there. Yeah. But from what I have seen of what they've done for Netflix is, like I said, they have an American flair. They have these very robust, rugged characters, very muscular, and which I was like, okay, I can understand why you would want Powerhouse to work on a Skull Island show, because you want to bring that kind of we'll say hyper masculine energy to this, particularly with Kong, and do it and have all these crazy monsters and things running around. Even if our characters are not going to be jacked like He-Man, I would still expect them to to do that. But I will admit, in terms of character design in this, our human characters are fine. There's nothing terribly memorable, but I don't think you necessarily could have. The kind of characters that we have here, we have teenage kids, we have scientists, we have some soldiers. You're not necessarily going to make the designs really pop. Again, you would have to make the writing and the characterization be where they really shine in that regard. However, they had an opportunity to do some crazy stuff with monster design. What did you guys think of the monster designs in this?
You mean the overgrown Pokemon?
Yeah, I think that tells me everything.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. The actual designs of these things, for most of them, and I'll include Dog in this. Yeah, I actually do like the looks of them. But the problem is the way they must have come up with these monsters is like, okay, we got a piece of aloe vera and we got a dinosaur. Let's just cram those things together. Or as a hedgehog. I'm sorry. Fusion. Yeah. Yeah, and I'm going, that's just Bulbasaur.
Yeah, I mean, I will say it is a bit of a Kong tradition to just have glorified animals in these.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not complaining, because I mean, this is just supposed to be the quote unquote the wildlife that wandered up from Hollow Earth.
Yeah,
but I saw a quotation from Mr. Duffield who said that, this show is about the Hollow Earth without being in the Hollow Earth. Okay.
Well, maybe you could refers do to that, but I don't know. This still feels like they were trying so hard to hold all of their secrets for season 2 instead of actually doing something with season 1.
Yeah. So we have a croc, which is more like a gator. We've talked about the crabs.
Yeah.
We've talked about the Kraken. The Kraken is probably the wildest monster design in this. Where it's half
Which I actually
squid.
do like the design of the Kraken.
Yeah. Well, what's crazy about the Kraken is that it's kind of a fusion of a shellfish, an octopus, and a squid, because some of its tentacles look like octopus tentacles, some look like squid tentacles. And it's got a bit of a shellfish look to it when you actually see the body. Kong looks like Kong. Not a whole lot you can do there. And I think, honestly, outside of
the
those,
Skullcrawler shows up.
Yeah, there's one Skullcrawler for about 20 seconds, and I was like, really? That's all we're getting for the Skullcrawlers?
Those things are supposed to be like all over the place still.
Yeah. Again, I'm starting to wonder if this was originally not a MonsterVerse project, because I was expecting there would be more Skullcrawlers.
Yeah. Skullcrawlers are supposed to reproduce like rats, for crying out loud.
Yeah. And they're supposed to be all over the place, but I don't know. So that's a little goofy. And if it's 20 years after Skull Island, which was in the 70s, you expect there would be a lot more of those things running around.
Yeah.
But I would say, honestly, other than that, I mean, there's some weird plant life that they deal with, which was kind of interesting, one of which basically turns into Audrey 2.
Yeah.
Tries to eat Irene, which was interesting.
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but I was sitting there going, yes, eat your fill. Don't let this character come back. I already know who she is, even though they haven't said who she is yet.
Yeah. Because, that the plot twists in this are not that impressive. You have to go back to plot with, when we find out, Irene is Annie's mother. I'm like, I kind of saw that coming, guys.
Yeah, like 4 episodes ago.
It's not like they don't look similar to each other.
At all.
Yeah. So their attempts at plot twists were serviceable at best, I think. But honestly, other than that, I think, other than, like I said, the Kraken, who just looks wild, Kong, who has cultural weight to him, the only monster, and then the 20 seconds of the Skullcrawler, the only monster really stood out to me were the crazy chameleons from episode 7.
Oh yeah, I love that chameleon fight.
The chameleon fight was good because they weren't as big as Kong, but they were attacking as a pack, and they were vicious and aggressive, and their camouflage ability made them incredibly difficult to deal with.
I love the way they animated the skin color changing when they got hit and everything.
Yes.
It's like
that was good.
I've seen so many other things with a chameleon where they just barely do anything with the skin color changing, and I just love how it worked here.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when he's crawling up Kong's back and he turns black, just as black as his fur.
Mm-hmm.
I appreciate it.
Oh, okay. There is one other creature I forgot from the movies that's in this, but it's only a cameo as a corpse, and that's the Skur Buffalo.
Yeah.
The water buffalo looking thing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I do remember him being there.
Yeah. And then,
At the same time, like you say, this just feels like it was shoved in there to say, see, we're connected to MonsterVerse. See?
Yeah. Yeah. And then we get there. I'm looking at the full list of all the other monsters in this, and a lot of them they're just incidental creatures that we see. A lot of them are giant insects, some birds.
Yeah. Yeah, we got Big Bird in there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Big Bird. There's a giant ant because them, and the Venus flytrap, centipede.
See, I thought those ants in Final Fantasy 14, so I know what that's like.
Yeah. Something called a Night Boy. I don't remember the Night Boy, but
I don't know what Night Boy is either.
Yeah, but the other thing I want to mention in terms of the style is the acting style in this. I've heard some interesting analyses about how the actors are performing in this, and I'm going to be honest with you. I feel like the style of it feels like two different, well, not just two, I think several different styles that they try to mash together. The teenagers feel like they feel like either, I mean, if it's supposed to be the early 90s, they're either, depending on how you look at it, they're either late Gen Xers or early millennials, but they act more like Zoomers, including some pretty, honestly, I think pretty lame Zoomer humor, which just feels out of place.
Yeah.
And the adults, while I would say they aren't as annoying in that regard, I was talking with my friend Michael about this, from my co-host from the Power Trip, and he feels like with the adults, it seemed like they were trying to do the Office style humor, and it's not landing.
Yeah,
totally understand that.
And some of the actors' performances are just kind of goofy in that regard. They don't really help these characters, I have to say. And that became very abundant to me. That became abundantly clear, I should say, to me when I saw the second trailer for this show. And that's when we actually got to hear the performances and the dialogue. And I'm like, really, guys? It's like, I cringed so hard in that when I watched the trailer and I heard, you know what they should have called this place? Not Great Island.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Well, the way that line was written, and this is just me playing devil's advocate here, it could have worked had they been under more stressful situations. but they're not for the most part. Yeah, they're being chased by monsters all the time, but there's also long stretches where they're not being chased by monsters, and it ain't dog that's helping them with that. It's just there's not as many there.
Yeah, and I'm looking over some of the what I thought were just awful lines that because a lot of my notes, if you saw my notes, I would put eye roll emojis to them depending on how cringy I thought it was. I got up to 5 in some regards.
I'm going to admit something here that for 3 episodes, I was building a Gunpla instead of while I was watching. So I may not have paid as close attention as I would have liked.
Yeah. But like some of the lines,
the middle of this show was very dull.
Yeah.
Yes, very dull.
Yeah. But it's just
the writing is
they
dull.
love weirdly repeating things because they think it's funny. It's like, I already hurt you. You got hurt. What? That rock yelled at you, and now there's guns.
They're called they're called a private military.
Yeah,
exactly.
I feel like this line could have been good, but it just didn't land. Which is, I feel like shooting is worth a shot.
It was like the writers were sitting there. It's like, how cringy can we make every line and make the voice actors just deadpan it half the entire time? And be like, for me, be like, kind of like Drew, be like, I sat there, I had to pause this thing multiple times watching it. I was like, really? They said that? Really?
How about this one? Stabby no worky.
I've heard that used and actually work, but not here.
Yeah.
Get dumb. Yeah.
Yeah.
Dumb.
It would help if there was an intelligent character on this show.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, you have characters who are supposed to be intelligent, but it's not.
They really don't come across as intelligent.
There's not an ounce of wisdom on this island.
Yeah, not really. But we'll get to that when we get to the characters. But like I said, I feel like the animation has some pretty major issues, at points. But honestly, the animation might overall be the most impressive thing on here, other than everything. Although admittedly, everything in episode 7 just works.
There are animation errors at points in here that would be fixed with like another round of polish.
Right.
Yeah.
It really feels like this got rushed out almost not at the last minute, but mostly someone saw and said, "Oh, that's good enough," and then just stuck it out there.
Right.
Because there's parts of this that look good, like they're trying stuff that's that in some places that is hard to do.
Yeah.
But there's also parts where it's like, really? This is what do you think this is good enough?
The whale scene, for example.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. It was like, why aren't, like I said, it has flashes of brilliance, with all this stuff.
It needs another round of polish.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Like the characters' walk cycles, for the most part, are pretty good. I would agree. But like some of the characters walking, their motions are good for the most part, and then the others more all they're doing is moving the shoulders. There's no full body.
Well, I mean,
motion.
that's an anime kind of trope,
right?
Which can work.
I agree
but
there.
There are instances where it feels like there's art and passion behind this.
Yeah,
and then there's other parts that feels like we are making a quick buck and we do not care.
Yeah, it's
it's never consistent.
Yeah, you take like past Powerhouse works like Dracula, which Dracula was done incredibly well. Castlevania.
Dracula's in it.
Yeah, Dracula's in it. But Castlevania is done very well. Its animation is done very well. Masters Universe Revelation, which I like, I have my own opinions on. I enjoyed it, but I'm in the minority with some people. But with how that was animated, I thought it was done brilliantly animation-wise. I thought it was done very well. In this, you see that the exact kind of progression they were doing with the animation, but then it's like they were like having to maybe like their budget was cut at some point, so they had to take some major like.
I'm wondering if it was the budget was cut or if perhaps it was hurt by the pandemic.
They started this in 2021.
Yeah.
I mean,
they announced it in 2021.
I looked up where this studio is located.
Texas.
And it's in Texas. So
yeah, in your native Texas.
Yeah, yes. It would. Texas was pretty much open in 2021.
Yeah,
for the most part. Austin may have been, because this would have been in Austin.
Yeah,
that may have been a little bit more locked down, and they may have been some more working from home, which could have hurt it a little bit,
maybe.
But for the most part, I really does feel like they needed another 6 months on the animation.
Probably would have benefited from that.
It wouldn't have helped the acting.
It wouldn't. I don't think so, because I don't know. It just the performances generally were not working for me, because a lot of times the characters were not acting how you would expect them to do that. Cap, for a while, the dad, was kind of the best character, but then he started behaving weird because he's having a little too much awe at everything, too much wonder at everything. It's like, yeah, all of the stuff you're wondering at wants to kill you. Thought I would remind you about that. I get it. Skull Island is inhabited by some really wondrous creatures, but they all want to kill you. And just yeah. So I don't know. It's just like everything in it is just weird. Huh?
I agreed.
I was just saying, you are not safe while you are still on this island.
No.
Not till Monarch gets their butts out here.
And that's another thing. It's like, where the heck is Monarch while this? I was waiting for Irene to say that she was working for Monarch.
I still think she is, but there's nothing that tells you that. How do you do a MonsterVerse thing and not mention Monarch at some point? They're the main characters of this stuff.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, basically. All right.
They're the connective tissue.
All right. Yeah, because I know that we're going to have a lot to say about the characters, so let's move on into what I expect will be the shortest portion of our discussion, and that's theme. I'm having a hard time really latching on to anything outside of Episode 7. Episode 7 is full of so many riches. But
agreed.
Yeah, but the rest of this, like I said, it's supposed to be coming of age. There's also a lot of stuff about. I will admit, I like that it's very pro family, because you have the two boys. Like, their whole thing is like everybody gets stranded on the island, and the two boys are trying to find their dad, and they're their dads, I should say. Well, no, only really one of them. They're not brothers; they're best friends.
We already knew Hero had already passed.
Yeah. So, and I like that. I like that dichotomy there, where one kid is trying to find his dad and the other kid is mourning his dad.
Yeah. So they're trying to help each other.
And they're trying to help each other out. So I see how it can work. The problem is that it doesn't quite work because of the character writing in this. But I will say I do appreciate that. And then you find out, Irene is Annie's mother, and then that becomes a bit of a thing. It's because even though the plot twist doesn't really work, and then the character writing botches it again. But so there's a lot of stuff about family in this, particularly parent-child relationships. And I think that's mirrored a little bit when you get Island Girl, give her a name, guys, and Kong, which is why Episode 7 will break your heart. Although their relationship is different in that it's not really, they're best friends, which I wonder if that's kind of supposed to be a thing with Mike and Charlie as well, because they're supposed to be best friends too.
Well, one of the things, just jumping off of that, the theme I saw throughout this whole thing was trust. Everything around this is based on either people are trying to earn each other's trust. They already trust each other. There's a lot of distrust. A lot of it hit me when looking at between Dog and Charlie for in episodes 5 and 6.
Yeah, that was good.
Neither one of them trust each other at the very beginning, but at the end of it, they've come to at least come to an understanding.
Yeah,
even though and they do trust each other, but then there's so much other mistrust and trust issues going throughout the whole thing.
Yeah.
So trust was really the theme that really hit me, is what this was trying to talk about.
Agreed. Yeah. Because there is a lot of mistrust going on, and probably the best example of utter mistrust is probably Annie, and it also is which one of the boys was crushing on her? I can't remember.
Charlie.
Was it Charlie? Yeah, and
Charlie was crushing on her. Mike wasn't, because he was too busy trying not to die of sting poisoning.
Yes, that's the other thing from the Kraken, is that it injects a venom into people, and there's no resolution for that.
Yeah. Still don't know if he survived.
We still don't know, and so he was a little distracted, and so I guess the idea is that Charlie's trying to build trust with Annie because he thinks she's the coolest girl he's ever known. I'm like, kid, you need to meet more girls. But we'll get to that.
Yeah,
we'll get to that. Again, it seems that's what's frustrating about this. The more I talk about the show, the more I realize it could have been great, but they don't get there. Like, the ideas are there.
Yeah.
The ideas are there.
But
they're executed so badly.
Agreed.
There's so much missed potential.
Yeah.
Throughout this whole thing.
Except for episode 7.
Episode 7 knocks it out of the ballpark.
Exactly.
We keep going back to that.
For watching for 7.
And what kills me is you watch that episode, and it's like, okay, this creative team knows doesn't actually know how to do this. Mm-hmm. Why didn't they do this the rest of the season?
Save that energy. Save that energy for later. I will. But going back to talking about trust.
Get activated. Trust me.
But going back to trust, that's what makes episode 7 so tragic, because Kong has a best friend. It's classic Kong when we get to this, where he has a human woman that he is bonded with. Like, they are best friends, and they hang out with each other, and she just trusts Kong intrinsically, at least at first. She has tremendous respect for him, and then the chameleons attack. She nearly dies several times. Kong busts his butt saving her. He gets horrendously hurt saving her. And then she has the audacity to say, "You're not a king, you're just a dumb animal," which is the title of that episode. And I'm like, how? Like, the audacity you have, woman. The audacity.
Yeah.
Why? How could you dare say that? And then Kong tries to make it up to. He kind of turns into like the scorned boyfriend at that point, which is kind of weird, because he tries to bring her quote unquote flowers, and she's like, "I don't need these." But then after that, he's like, "Fine, okay, I'm done." And then there's another monster attack, and the episode ends with him holding this girl in his hand. She has been mortally wounded. She just reaches up to him, and her last words are, "My king."
Yeah.
And then she literally dies in his hand.
And it's immediately after this, I texted both of y'all. On episode 7 has me officially pissed. Why isn't the rest of the show like this?
Yes. Exactly. And I'm like, what just happened? You had these two characters basically have a falling out, to the point where I didn't like the Island Girl for a hot minute. The Island Girl was on the same level as Annie for me. But then you brought it back around and actually told a great story with it. I'm like, oh my gosh, it wounded me. It genuinely wounded me seeing that. And then the expression on Kong was so brilliantly animated, as you pointed out.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I'm just like, my gosh, this is some of the most pathos that I've seen in a Kong story in a long time.
And then it's all ruined in the last 5 seconds when
it is.
The team shows back up and we get the stupidest lines in the show.
We get the stupidest lines in the show, and Annie laughs at everything. And I'm like,
can we needs to go back to the orphanage?
Please send her back to the orphanage.
Back to her island.
Yeah. So again, it's there. It is there.
Yeah. At the core of this thing is a good, solid rock thing, but they don't do a thing with it.
All right. We've been dancing around it. We need to talk about the characters, because this wants to be a character-driven show.
Oh, it wants to be.
It really wants to be. Done. Now, let me start off. Let me start off with this. There's one in particular where going to have to talk about. But do you feel like we've established, in episode 7, this is certainly true, but do you think Kong is an effective character in this? He's not simply a kaiju or a titan. If
we're talking simply out of episode 7,
not including episode 7, the only time he's actually a character and not just random animal who shows up for 5 seconds is this in episode 8, but that's only because they're building off of what happened in episode 7.
And I actually have an issue with how he's handled in episode 8, because even though that kaiju fight is great, if you stop and think about it, because again, the flashback was just for the audience.
Yeah.
Kong is a tool. And the fact that I know the tragic backstory with, because the necklace belonged to the island girl. That's why he keeps it around. Knowing that, and that they're using it to exploit him and turn him into a tool, it made me angry.
I agree.
I was angry while also thrilled at the kaiju fight.
Yeah. Sorry, I did interrupt you, Jacob. What were you about to say?
You're good. Be like, Kong outside of episode 7 is simply just either he's a threat or he's a tool. That is all he is in the show. But we see his big footprint, and then we see little glimpses of him here, and he shows up. Be like, how long is Kong in this show?
Someone actually tallied it up. I think he has maybe, I think it's between 13 and 15 minutes of actual screen time.
Not counting.
And I know people were trying to compare it to Godzilla and Singular Point, because I think they said, that show was 5 episodes longer, but Godzilla has less screen time or something like that. There's supposed to be a disparity with
Godzilla, and that the threat of him was felt throughout the entire series.
And Kong in this
when Kong's not on screen, you're not thinking about Kong.
Yeah,
no,
and that's the problem.
And they're gonna it harkens back to this is supposed to be a character driven story, and then you have all these blessedly terrible characters.
So, and we have a couple different batches of them. I will say this, quote unquote island girl, I wish she was in more of it. If you just look at episodes, in the grand scheme of things, she might have actually been the best character in the show, but she's only in episode 7. That's the problem. She's a one-off character. We talked about she has so much. She's such a dynamic character because she's both kind of petty, but also incredibly respectful of Kong at the same time. She truly does love Kong, but for whatever reason, she was just mad at him because she's like, it's your fault that these things tried to kill me. The way I was looking at it, she was saying, you saved my life, but if it wasn't for you, we wouldn't have even gotten into the situation.
Right.
So it's actually understandable. And then, like I said, she actually has a character arc. Yes. Guys, in one episode, she had more of a character arc than everybody else in the show.
Yeah, you're not kidding.
Because that's the thing. There are no other character arcs in this show other than getting from point A to point B with nothing for the characters to grow off of.
Yeah, I would say this, that the only real big character arcs would probably be between Charlie and Dog with their development. They don't trust each other at first, like we said earlier.
Right. Yeah, that was a good idea.
They kind of learn to trust each other.
That was a good idea. Forcing those two characters together for an episode or two to try to get back to the rest of the group. That was actually a really good idea. And I know you guys told me before we went on the air that you think, that maybe not that he's the best character, but or maybe he is in your opinion, but you said Dog was your favorite character.
Yeah, Dog is the only character in the main cast I respect.
And for those who don't know, Dog is this kind of bear-sized kaiju, grizzly bear-sized kaiju that was quote unquote tamed. And the Omni viewer pointed out that he thinks that the fact that a kaiju was tamed in this kind of goes against the theme of the MonsterVerse, which is that man cannot control nature. Man must respect nature and work with nature, but cannot control it. But
Dog is not tamed. No. Annie says multiple times, he is not my pet. They are just friends.
Yeah.
Right.
But other times she does say he is her pet in some ways. It counters each other in some ways.
Well, that just
again, bad writing.
How messy the writing
terrible
is.
writing.
Yeah. But when we have the flashback for them showing their backstory, you feel for Dog. I wish he had. This is his name is an example of we're going to not be clever to seem clever.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't always work, guys. If you're going to do that, it's just that's very hit or miss. Back home in Indiana, I just realized that was an unintentional reference, but there's a bowling alley that is literally named the bowling alley. Like they're trying to be clever by not sounding clever.
Right.
So why did you respect Dog?
I respected Dog because of all the characters in this one. He seemed to be the smartest one. He seemed to be he was the most cautious of the newcomers, far more than Annie was.
Good.
Both of Michael and Charlie, and of everybody else. He was determined enough to get back what was his, which was Annie.
Yeah.
He swam from another island across the ocean to Skull Island. They barely show that, but it happens.
Yeah.
They still don't explain how that worked.
Well, it's also weird because the trailers for this gave you the impression that Annie and Dog had survived on Skull Island, but actually they were on another island that got taken to Skull Island, which I thought was needlessly convoluted.
Yeah.
And how Annie somehow knows things about Skull Island.
Yeah, that's why they must have made a change in this. They must have made a change at some point. Like I guarantee you, that was originally intended that they were both on Skull Island, surviving on Skull Island, but then they changed it for some reason.
Right. But back to Dog. Charlie, when you get into that part where he and Charlie are, trying to get back from the Kong's altar, for lack of a better name for that location,
the temple,
and the temple, yeah, and he half the time doesn't feel like he needs Charlie, but he's also smart enough that he knows what's going on. He feels smarter than everybody else. It was just every time Dog did something, it felt like this is the smartest person here.
Yeah.
He knows what's going on far better than this. How does Charlie not know he's calling for Annie every time he's howling? I knew that. Now we hadn't even seen her backstory yet.
Yeah.
With them howling at the moon. Come on.
Yeah. Now our teenage Kennys, we've talked a bit about them throughout this. Charlie and Mike. I wanted to like them. I really wanted to like them. But they ended up being kind of annoying because if this was supposed to be a coming of age where they quote unquote learn to be men through these incredibly harsh circumstances, they don't entirely accomplish that. They don't get to do a whole lot of cool things, unfortunately, because they get overshadowed by Annie. And they get a little bit of stuff. They get to do a little bit of stuff where you feel like, okay, they're finally doing the brave things at the end, but it feels a little too late, because it's Mike forces himself. I don't know how he did it and how nobody saw him and how nothing picked him up, but he manages to basically drag himself to help Cap. And, and even manages to shoot some stuff while almost dead from the Kraken poison. So I give him credit there, but it still seemed a little improbable that he'd be able to do that. Because I don't know if he had displayed enough sheer determination to do that before this.
I don't think the two neither him nor Charlie had any growth at all throughout this entire story. And that's the biggest issue here. I mean,
because they're supposed to be two of our three main characters, essentially.
Right. These two characters are supposed to be people we're rooting for to survive this. And I'm sitting here the whole time going, okay, Mike is either going to die or he's going to turn into a kaiju. This could go either way.
That would have been a good idea.
And I don't know which way I want this to go.
That happened to you once? I don't believe you. Unless it's like there was the kaiju guy and the tick. Unless it was like that, I'm calling BS on that. No.
And Charlie is just so insufferable.
Oh, well, Charlie. I thought you were talking about
Charlie.
I was
not kicked over the can yet. No.
Yeah. Charlie and Mike, when they said incredibly lame Zoomer humor, I need to trademark that. I would cringe at him and kind of turn against him a little bit, but for the most part, I just felt largely apathetic toward them.
Yeah.
I just didn't care.
I just didn't care about any of the characters.
I just didn't care. The adults, I do think, fare a little bit better.
Only because they're not the primary characters. They're secondary characters.
And most of them are just there for the slaughter. That's all they're there for.
Yeah, and even the two main ones, Irene and Cap, they have a plot, but they still feel like we're here, but we're not really going to do anything important.
Yeah, what's weird is that Cap gets so mired in wide-eyed wonder at all of the crazy megafauna on Skull Island that he seems to forget for long periods of time that he needs to find his son and his best friend.
And well, for a lot of times, his best friend's father, because he doesn't know he's dead till what, episode 6?
Yeah. He forgets that for long periods of time. It's like, dude, focus.
I mean, I could understand him being in wide-eyed wonder about all the stuff he's seeing, because this is basically what he's been looking for.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. Time. Yeah, he's been looking for stuff like this.
I could forgive that if there wasn't at least some mental conflict he's always fighting of, oh, all this is great and beautiful. I got to find my son. Oh, this is amazing. I've got to find my son. Where is he? I'm worried about him. Give me a scene where he's sitting there at night wondering where his son is, and also looking at, this giant field of deadly killer flowers, and not have a conversation with Irene, which is the only person he would have a conversation with, and have her says, it's weird. I this is where I've been trying to get to this whole time, and all this stuff is amazing, but all I really want to do is find my son and leave.
Right. Yeah. Especially since
that scene.
Yeah. Especially since the last time he saw his son, they had a spat over whether or not he wanted to go to college. Because dad's like, I want you to go to college. And he's like, well, what if I don't want to go to college? That sort of a thing.
No. The son wants to go to college.
Oh, the son wants to go to college, but that's right. I got it backwards. Exactly. But Dad wants him to just go on adventures with him. And I'm thinking,
which I get, but that's also backwards.
Yeah. Well, but I'm like, I get it that the son, I think the idea is that Charlie just wants to have a typical life. Yeah, but I'm also thinking, it's like, dude, you get to go on absolutely crazy adventures with your dad and travel around the world. I would be pumped at this.
Especially since it's very obvious your dad is looking for Godzilla.
Yeah.
Yeah, something like that.
Because there's a flashback where he's saying, like, I saw this thing in the water. It was bioluminescent and it was blue. And I thought for a hot second, I was like, is this a Godzilla Easter egg? No, it's the Kraken, because the Kraken's bioluminescent.
No, he's not looking for the Kraken, because he says, when someone asks him, is this what you've been looking for? He says, no, this is something new. So it's like, that was my clue. You've been looking for Godzilla, and you never found him.
Oh, okay. I guess you might have a point there.
That makes sense. That totally makes sense.
Either that, or again, this is another example of sloppy writing.
Well, it's probably also further proof that this was all jammed into the MonsterVerse at the last minute.
Probably. Yeah. Sure, Jimmy, start taking shots every time I bring up sloppy writing. You're going to get plastered really fast. And I don't want a drunk producer. I've had a drunk producer before. It was not fun. Anyway.
No, I bet it wasn't fun. Nope. I heard that episode.
Yes, you did. That was something. But anyway. So the funny thing is if you stop and think about it, Irene makes a little bit more sense, because Irene's more focused. Yeah. Although I think at this point, she's not looking for Annie. She's assuming that Annie is dead, because she says, I buried you.
Yeah, she thought Annie had been dead
for 10 years
until 2 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, until they discovered
until 2 weeks ago. So I think that's It is why she's there, right? Is she looking for Annie, or is she there to get something else? I forget.
No, she's looking for Annie.
She is looking for Annie.
She was looking for Annie, and I kind of got the feeling this was the closest we got to a mention of Monarch, even though they never said Monarch, because it sounded like somebody found the island Annie was on. They mentioned it. It got back to her. The only organization that would have probably been there would have been Monarch.
Okay,
and that's how she found out about it and got involved.
Okay, and I would like to point out that Annie wants you to think that those mercs, yes, I know, the worst mercs ever, that they were trying to kill her, but when you actually watch the flashback, I'm sorry, Dog came after them. What were they supposed to do?
That's true.
Sure, they were intruding on his territory, but he came after them. What did you expect?
Well, Annie's motivations, which we'll have to get to in a minute. I know we're saving that one to last. But there's much to be desired.
Yes, but at least Irene makes more. But like I was saying, Irene makes more sense because she's actually there. She's not getting distracted too much by all of the things on Skull Island. She's there and she never loses sight of her goal, even when we don't know what it is. Now, she's a little weird when we first meet her because she tries to play dumb, and it just felt weird. Like the actor's performance was just awkward.
Yeah.
When she was trying to play dumb, and then we found out, I got mercenaries and I'm doing stuff. I'm just like, okay, woman. Will you please name drop Monarch? It never happens because that's what I thought she was doing. Either that or
how hard is it to name drop that in one line?
Yeah, you would think. you would think, just
to see a logo in that hospital room at the end.
Yeah.
It's giving you a little Easter egg to what's really happening.
I will give Irene credit. I think she's the only character who ever tries to call Annie out on her BS.
Thank you.
Of course she does. She's the mother.
She's mom.
She should be calling her mother. She should be calling her out for BS.
And speaking of BS, Jimmy, cross the podcast streams.
Rantmaster activated.
Annie is not only the worst character in this show, she is the worst character in the MonsterVerse. She makes no freaking sense, and she's an insufferable, narcissistic psychopath.
Amen, brother.
I don't care if the idea is not unreasonable. It is not unreasonable. You want to have some Sheena girl who survived out here on the island with her big, bad doggy companion? I'm actually open to that concept. But why is she an insufferable boss wench? And I'm saying wench to be at least a little bit polite. I hate this chick so much. And I'm like, I was concerned when I watched the trailer and she's spouting off lines like, I am the giant monster. And just like, okay, I hope that the idea here is that you're either the villain, which clearly wasn't going to be the route they were going to take, or you were going to get humbled. She never gets humbled. And the most we get is her mother says, she's a brat. I'm like, why don't you actually say it to her face, please? And brat is polite. I don't understand this character. I get it. If you're on an island, you're constantly trying to survive, it's going to harden you. How do you turn into a narcissist? I don't get it. And the thing is, when we see her in the flashback, when she's a little girl, she actually acts like a human being. I was actually sympathizing with her, and then I had to switch that up because, like, no flashback. You are not going to make me feel sorry. Use this to make me feel sorry for present day Annie. I refuse to feel sorry for present day Annie. No. And then, okay, I'm going to point out something that this might be the most controversial thing I've ever said on the podcast. If you swap the genders for our three main characters, the loudmouth minority of the internet would have eviscerated this show with that first trailer. Because She says, "Are all boys as useless as you?" And the boys just agree with her. That didn't ingratiate me to those two boys either.
No.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. You switch that and you make it crazy narcissistic Tarzan instead of Sheena, and it's two teenage girls who get stranded on the island, and he says, "Are all girls as useless as you?" And they agree. You never would have gotten away with it.
No.
You never would have gotten away with it, but she gets to be that way because girl. It makes no sense, especially since in the flashback, her father dies saving her life. And she doesn't care. That does not seem to affect her at all. Why wouldn't it? Why would she be so obnoxiously ignorant of a lot of things? Why would she have no concept of manners? Why would she have zero respect for boys?
Okay, I'm going to jump in on this part so I can start ranting myself.
Let her rip.
Go with this. I will give
tag.
her this.
I'll tag you in, man. We're going to do this pro wrestling style. You ready for this, Jacob? This is, we're a 3-man tag team right now with this win.
I will give this Annie this much. She's a feral child. She was a brat when her father died, and she was left on the island all by herself. You can kind of see, you don't get a chance to see that, but good night. If the size of that boat, she had to have been a brat. I can see how she has no social etiquette manners whatsoever, only because she's a feral child who grew up away from every other human being for the past 8 years?
Like 10 years, I think.
Yeah,
right.
Like that.
Yeah, because she's 16 at the end. I'm still going. If she's 16 now, and you had to have been, 8 when you were
7.
left on this island, how do you not know your own age at this point? Is the weather on Skull Island this bad that you can't
no, she's not on Skull Island, man. She's not from Skull Island.
No. Sorry, let me rephrase. Pseudo Skull Island. No, if it can't be Skull Island, let's see, what's next? Cockix Island. I don't know.
Godzilla Island, Monster Island, the beta like site, the other Monster Island. It's just
Humongous Island. I don't know.
Yeah. Good.
Maybe she could be in the digital
Dog Island.
Yeah, get a Digimon to eat her. Thank you very much.
And we know what
feed
that's
her.
Like. But,
yeah, thanks.
Feed her to the first nasty thing you find on the island, please.
Right. I can maybe understand how she's missing social norms because she's not been around it for 8 years. She's not had to think about it. However, that does not give you the right to make this character completely hateable.
Exactly.
And I don't understand why Charlie likes her.
She is a main character. I should like her better than anyone else, or if there's a reason I don't like her, it needs to be a flaw that she can overcome. But this is not a flaw for her to overcome. This is her personality, period, and she doesn't care if she becomes a better person or not.
No, and what makes it worse?
I understand not wanting to leave the island and go back with her mother to New York. I get that. But at the same time, you need to understand, girl, that this world is bigger than you and these islands.
Yes. And what
makes you understand your mother she thought you were dead. The fact that would have been painful enough as it is. Mm-hmm. Then she finds out you're alive. That's gotta get her hopes. It's like, oh, my little girl's still alive. We've got to go and save her. And then you get out there, and then your dog, which I still is my favorite character in the show. Sure. Your dog attacks everybody, and you shoot at the dog. And of course, she doesn't understand you're there to save her. She thinks that you're here to attack her and enslave her or whatever. It's kind of what it feels like. Mm. And then you kidnap her, you chain her onto your ship. So, of course, she's not going to like that. And then, of course, she escapes. And you all...
Because she's a Mary Sue. I said it.
Annie has... I understand why Annie was mad at all this going on. I could see that from her point of view. But at the same time, calm yourself, woman.
You were ready you were ready to have Jet censor that, weren't you? Oh. What the Jet? Stop
and think, Annie, for 5 seconds. even if you don't realize this is your mother, you've got to, and you maybe not have seen yourself in the mirror in a while. I don't know, which I don't believe because her hair is way too nice to be completely on that island by herself.
Yeah,
with not
she's
having
not feral at all.
She doesn't seem feral. She's obviously had a haircut in the last week. Not a great haircut, but a haircut. But
she cut it herself with
which is fine. I mean, she has a mirror. That means she knows what she looks like. She ought to be able to put two and two together like everybody else watching this stupid show and understand that that's her mother.
But obviously she doesn't care. She doesn't care about her mother's feelings. She only cares about her. It's like, why didn't you come find me? Why didn't you just leave me alone on the island for 10 years? I'm like, she thought you were dead, wench.
Well, I can even understand her not understanding that she thought that her mother thought she was dead. Because I can see you're in the moment, emotions get high. It's like, everybody must, why doesn't my mom come save me? She must not like me, blah, blah. Here's a question. Why does she not have a picture of her mother on that island with her? Was there a divorce? It was things bad between mother and father.
That actually might have been a good way to humanize this person. It's just,
right. They gave us an insufferable person as a character and gave us no way to humanize her.
Yeah,
none whatsoever. And then what makes it worse is, even though she's supposed to, I guess, think that these two boys are her friends or something, and one of them is crushing on her and whatever. Yeah, and the one who's crushing on her falls into a bug pit. And then Mike's like, hey, you better tell Dog to save him, because even she says, there's giant ants down there. And she's just like, this is her delivery. She goes over to Dog and says, hey, he says go down and save him. Dog ignores her. I'm not even going to blame Dog. I'm going to blame this all on Annie, because clearly she is not communicating the severity of the situation to Dog.
She's not even using her friendship with Dog to get Dog down there to save her.
Yeah. And then Mike says, no, tell him it's important. He says it's important. Dog just walks away. And the only reason she does anything is because Mike says, you're a terrible friend. And then she's like, how dare you call me a terrible friend when you were going to let him sit down there and the ants eat him? Shut up. You got anything for us, Jacob? You got to get in on the tag team action.
Is what makes the end of this so painful for me. Because here's the thing. They obviously are setting up for a sequel. Do I want one? No. But here's the second problem. A part of me is going to want to watch it because it's like, I am now curious what happened to Mike and to Cap and to Charlie and to Kong and to Dog. And you not know what's going to happen for the second season, just the way they set it up. It's all going to be little Orphan Annie running around New York.
Oh, brother.
Is it going to be are they going to make it a musical too?
Kong couldn't have followed her to New York City. That would break continuity because no one's supposed to know Kong exists by the time he shows up in Godzilla vs. Kong.
They'll jump ahead 30 years or something, and she'll be a narcissistic old lady.
And that's the other thing that worries me. This is part of a cinematic universe, technically.
Allegedly.
The MonsterVerse has not done a good job with its human characters, reusing them throughout the entire franchise.
Yes.
There was some connection between King of the Monsters and Godzilla vs. Kong, but that's it. And now I'm afraid we're going to get some live action version of Annie either in the Apple TV show that's coming up in the next year. Or she's going to be in Godzilla and Kong, and I'm going to be sitting there going, don't bring this character.
I have already, Jimmy will vouch for me on this. I have already started a petition that has been signed by myself and Jimmy and even my pseudo sister to ban Annie from Monster Island. Like, do not bring her to the island. No one wants to see her unless they're weirdos.
Do me a favor. Hand that petition to me right now.
Here you go. Right now. Add your names, both of you.
Here.
There you go.
Yeah, dude, Annie is banned from the island. Just no. Send her back to Skull Island. We don't care.
Or even to Femur Island.
Yeah, I mean, you here, make it really amusing for all of us. Throw her back to Skull Island. Send a few camera drones to follow her, and we'll see how long she lasts. It'll be like the Hunger Games.
Yes.
Except the only things that are hungry are the monsters. And I don't know, she might be so insufferable that like one of the monsters on Skull Island would grab her and be like, nope, and just spit her right out. I'm not eating that.
What worries me is that dog is still her friend. He's got to be somewhere between those two islands because there's no way he's swimming to the mainland, wherever that is. Mm-hmm. And it's like, oh, that's the only thing that kept and protected her so far.
Yeah, that's it.
Was dog. It's the only reason she's alive.
Yeah. And clearly
she does not have the skills to pay the bills. I'm sorry.
No, she doesn't.
Well, and obviously the only friend she would have would be an animal because clearly dog does not realize how insufferable she is.
Exactly.
Congratulations. The only friend you have is an animal who just basically loves you unconditionally. Congratulations.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my. Oh,
Jacob, it's your turn.
Yeah, I tried to pass it off to you a few minutes ago, but
no, you feel like you're good. It's the fact that like this character, we set up that like she doesn't know things, but then all of a sudden she knows what this word means. She knows what these dialogues mean. She knows what modern language is, and yes, she's just stuck on a stupid island by herself apparently. But it looks like, according to the information we're given, there's people on the island that speak English. She knows what's going on. She's not like she acts dumber than a brick, but she knows what's going on. She knows about Kong. She knows all this stuff, but she's playing dumber than a brick.
Well, and how would she even know any of that stuff? Because she's not from Skull Island.
Yeah.
Yes.
So she's both incredible. This is what's baffling. She is both incredibly stupid and unrealistically intelligent at the same time. How do you achieve that?
Yeah. And you
bad writing. That's how you do it.
Exactly. And be like the fact you both, Jim, did it exactly right. But like this girl, the entire time, you have people who are being compassionate and trying to love her the entire time and ignoring them, ignoring what they're trying to do for her. And it's like, oh no, be like, you abandoned me. It's like, okay, understanding you got abandoned. Your mother didn't know this. And then she's finally trying to bring you back, trying to love on you because she loves you that much and you won't give a crap.
Yeah, and then, you want to hear some of the lines? You want to hear some of the lines that, these golden lines that she keeps spouting off? I've already mentioned some things about the boys and all that, and what was it? It's you'd probably die without me. Shut up.
Okay, I will.
What?
No, I wanted to get this point out before you got into the lines real quick.
Oh, sorry.
There is only so much teenage angst that works with this.
Yeah.
I get that that's what they're going for with this character is that, oh, she's a teenager. She hates everything. Blah, blah, blah. She has no reason to hate these people.
No.
She's been on an island, quote unquote, by herself for 12 years.
She is not the one who is allowed to have teenage angst. Charlie, I can see having teenage angst, but not Annie.
Yeah.
No.
She's been by herself with animals. Allegedly.
Sorry.
We know there's
no. I totally get it. I'm being a bit of a terrible host. Jimmy is shaking his head at me a little bit right now. I can tell. But no, like here's some of those other golden lines from her. Yeah. He said, I think you're just jealous I have an island and you just have breakfast. Shut up. I'm a best friend. Everyone knows that. Shut up.
You are not a best friend.
No, you are not. Oh my gosh. Is this an animal? I think it's an animal. I'm going to kill you if that bird kills me. I can't remember if that's her or her mother. It's stupid either way.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, and here's one. This is an exchange she has with one of the boys. I forget who. I think it's Charlie. He says, you're awake. And she says, and you're smart. Yeah. And then she buzzkills episode 7 with her psychotic laugh at the end after Charlie says, we're going to go get the monkey. And then she's like, And then it starts the next episode. And she's like, you're stupid. That's not going to work. Shut up. In fact, that was my first note on episode 8. I just wrote, shut up, Annie. And then I am the giant monster. And everyone thinks it's like, and she says, I should have named stuff. When she discovers cars, like, oh, you're 17 or 16, whatever, you would be learning to drive a car right now. And then she looks at Dog and says, I should have named you Car.
No, that's not what she says. She says, well, I guess I drive you around.
Yeah, that's what that dumb line is. Stupid writing. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But by the end of it,
was there not a script doctor on this?
Oh, they should have given it to me. I would have fixed it. I would have fixed it so much. I would have been like, you need to completely rewrite this character, or you need to have a lot more. You need to have the entire rest of the cast calling her out on her BS, and Charlie should not be crushing on her.
Or actually make her live up to the hype that she is selling. Mm-hmm. She is hyping herself up throughout this entire thing, and she is probably the least helpful character in the show.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, like, what does she do in the end? What does she do in the end? She rides Dog carrying a necklace to make the monkey run after them.
Yeah,
that's it. I'm glad that they didn't do something nuts like she's the one who actually kills the Kraken or something ridiculous like that. Do not rob Kong of his glory.
Yeah, thank you. That would have been, if that would have happened in that episode, I would have turned it off at that point and be like, nope, I'm done. We're trying to give this very unlikable character all the glory, and she doesn't need it. And this is a movie about Kong, not this character.
And what just gets to me is I have heard more so than I've actually seen people defending this character. I even had one guy who changed his entire TikTok handle to Annie's #1 fan and then basically turned his TikTok into an Annie Stan account because he honestly loves the character because he says, she's basically me if I was a girl. And he left that comment because I did mini reviews of each episode as I was watching them. And he said that to me on one of them, and I just responded with, because I'm trying not to be rude, I just responded with, I'm sorry. And then he made some dumb comment about how he loves her and hates himself or something. I'm like, you are weird, and I don't understand you. I'm going to leave that alone right now. That is a hornet's nest. I do not want to even budge.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're a weirdo.
Now, I can understand where people would be like, oh, I really enjoy this. I really enjoy this. But if you're looking at like the story itself and the writing itself and be like, oh, I can relate to that character. Oh, you can relate to a complete narcissist who hates everybody else around her.
I think
about everything.
The fact that there are people who like her and relate to her, I think says more about the times in which we live.
Agreed. Mm-hmm. Agreed.
That audience response, which I'm assuming is a minority, but that audience response probably says more, like I said, about the times we live in than the people who made it.
True.
Yeah.
And like I said, and this is coming from the same guy who wrote Love and Monsters. Love and Monsters was not like this. Love and Monsters was like episode 7. Because I really thought the Island Girl, for a hot minute, I thought, like, you just got to the same level as Annie. How dare you say Kong is not a king and he's just a dumb animal? But then she came back around because she had an arc. Annie has nothing.
None of these characters have any arc whatsoever.
Very little arc.
And Annie is just the worst one of it because not only because she has no redeeming qualities.
No.
I could forgive Charlie and Mike and Cap for a lot of things, and pretty much every other character. I can forgive a lot if it was written better. But there is no excuse for Annie, no matter how good the writing is, because she's just the most unlikable character. Maybe you could make it work if you did something that made me like her, but this character I feel was written to make people hate her.
I don't know. I can't see. That's the thing. I don't know. I'm not entirely convinced that these writers necessarily meant for people to hate her. I swear to you, they must have thought, because these boss babe type characters are just popular in Hollywood right now, despite the fact that people generally reject them. They seem to think, oh, people love characters like this, but we don't. You need to stop giving us these characters and then get mad at us when we don't like them.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's just, there's a huge disconnect with that. That's what gets to me. If the idea was you're supposed to hate her, you succeeded, but I don't think that was the case, because I think the writing would have been better if the idea was you're supposed to hate her. Because if you're supposed to hate her, why is Charlie in love with her? Other than the fact that he's dumb and needs to meet more girls.
So hard not to reference a character in Star Trek Discovery.
Which one?
I am surprised you couldn't guess from what I just said. Which character?
Is it Michael Burnham?
Yes. It's the same character traits. Except you're supposed to not like her because she's the first mutineer of Starfleet.
Except I give them credit. I think they were trying to course correct as the show went on.
We're not getting into that because this is not a Star Trek Discovery.
I know it's not, but I'm just saying, trying. Maybe not succeeding, but trying.
I'm just saying the best thing to come out of Discovery was Strange New Worlds.
I was gonna say Saru, but but that's.
I like Saru also, but
yeah, but that's a whole other ball of wax right there. But
Anson Mount as Pike is the most brilliant casting decision I've ever seen. So
yeah. Anyway,
moving on.
Yeah. Okay.
Sorry, I had to talk about better shows.
Yes, I understand. Yes, it was cathartic. Was it cathartic for you, gentlemen?
Oh, I've been wanting to say something since I finished that episode yesterday.
It was very decompressing. Very. It was very helpful. It was like, oh, the dogs come out of the kennel.
Obviously, we heard him earlier.
Yes, we did for a change, and it was very soothing to finally just erupt in the frustration of the show and like, yeah. Again, thank you very much, Nate, for pointing us to this and
allowing us to bash this character into oblivion.
Oh, we needed to. And would not be surprised if there was some form of backlash, but I really don't care because we actually have a foundation to stand on, unlike I think most of the counter arguments we might get.
Yes.
Yeah.
I haven't heard any good ones.
Because more people interface with either one of us. That's just going to push our numbers up. And
It's true. So true. Like, oh my gosh, what are these people? What are these guys talking about? Hey, I want to listen to that.
Yeah. Oh, they hate Daddy. How dare they hate Daddy?
Oh, wait, they might actually have a good point. But I don't want to admit this.
Yeah. That anyway, I think I'm gonna that ranked as one of my favorite rantmasters, and it's not even on the Power Trip. That was wonderful. Wonderful. All right, let's move.
That was better than the one I did on the Power Trip.
I gave you one retroactively, admittedly, but
I immediately jumped into it before you could hit the button.
Yeah, you did. You did. All right, let's move on. All right. Yeah, we've gone on a little longer than I was expecting. We're at a point now where we're going to start wrapping things up. Normally, we would have the typical MIFV shenanigans and theatrics for things like our Patreon shoutouts, but I'm just going to read them off here really quick because, like I said, we got to start wrapping things up here. There's some listener feedback and all that I'm going to save for some future episodes. So, our MIFV MAX patrons on Patreon, a big thank you to Travis Alexander, Danny DiManna, Eli Harris, Bex from Redeemed Otaku, Damon Noyes, the Cel Cast, you guys, so thank you. TofuFury, Eric Anderson, Ted Williams, Wynja the Ninja, Brad Batman Eddleman, Christopher Riner, the Indiscrite One, and we got not one, not two, but 3 new patrons in the last month or so. So big shout out to Jake Hambrick, Edwin Gonzalez, and Matt Walsh, but not that Matt Walsh.
So specific.
Yeah.
All right, what do you got?
Okay, so our patron shout out, we got PaulJPowers.com, Book of Gaming, Ashley and Francisco Ruiz, and we just added, it appears, Kiana McNabb. So,
congratulations. Congratulations, gentlemen.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. All right. And now we all know what time it is. And apparently this is another catchphrase I am becoming well known for. Shameless self-promotion. So really quick, check out Kaiju Ramen Magazine, where I am the editor and one of the staff writers. We got issue 9 out right now. Issue 10 will be out soon. Also, check out my other podcast, Henshin Men, a podcast about the appreciation of Japanese superheroes and their high-flying and eye-kicking adventures, and The Power Trip, a journey through the Power Rangers franchise, although we're doing some Super Sentai and comic book coverage right now. My friend Michael Hamilton and I, while we're waiting for 30th anniversary Power Rangers stuff. And I am also a cast member for the X-Men audio drama and the Power Rangers audio drama for Scyther Inc. Productions. And I'm frequently on Kaiju Weekly. I'm on their rotating panel of hosts. So, and check out my author website, nathanjsmarchand.com, and all the socials will be in the credits, which you should listen to. Anyway.
Okay, I'm going to start this off doing my best Nathan James Norman impression. This podcast is part of the Culture Box Media Network. For more shows like this, go to culturebox.media. Anyway, also, Cel Cast Podcast is our podcast. We review animated movies and television shows. Come join us over there. We are coming up on some fun months here coming soon.
It's going to be fun.
Yes, especially if you like to hear more bashing of bad stuff, because we do have Bad Movie Month coming.
Is Bad Movie Month coming back?
People. Just wait.
We got some interesting ideas coming down the pike.
Yeah.
Also myself, I am I'm a cast member on Gospel by Gaslight, which is coming back soon. So keep an eye out for that.
Jake.
So where? I get started so easily. Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook at Jacob B. Heron, and also you can find my Jacob's Daily Art Corner, where I try to draw each and every day. I'm not successful at it all the time, but I try. You can find me on Facebook, and Instagram, and Twitter at Jacob Heron.
All right. One last thing before we sign out. Normally this would be about the point, actually be before the shameless self-promotion, but where I would be promoting the next couple of episodes. I'm actually not going to do that necessarily. I am going to mention that we are going to do another episode like this in a few short months, because we got another Kaiju animated project coming up. Yeah. Gamera Rebirth. We're getting back together to talk about that, and hopefully it's better than this.
Yay! Gamera is really neat. It's filled with turtle meat. We've been eating Gamera.
And Jacob is like, I don't know what you nerds are talking about.
Exactly. I at least heard it once before, because I had to play it last year on something. So yeah, we're looking forward to that when that comes back around.
Yes, and like I said, hopefully,
I think I may have forgot to tell Jacob we were talking about that.
Yeah, thanks for the narration.
Hey! It's Gamera. It's Japanese. And it's only 6 episodes.
Giant turtle that is not Bowser.
Bro.
He is a giant turtle who can fly like a flying saucer because his leg holes are jets, and he breathes fire.
Somehow.
So he's not a Ninja Turtle?
He's the original Ninja Turtle, sir.
Yes. As weirdly as he shows up in that first movie out of nowhere half the time.
Although the thing about Gamera, he has a dozen movies to his credit, and the quality of them is all over the place. Generally, Godzilla films are fairly consistent. Even, there's some dips in quality, obviously, but they don't dip as low as Gamera does. That's the problem. Like the old Gamera movies, mediocre to absolutely terrible. In fact, one of them is one of the worst kaiju movies I've ever seen. But then you get to the 90s where he came back with a vengeance and had 3 of the best kaiju movies ever made, plus a really underrated one that was made after that.
I need to finish the Heisei stuff because I've only watched the first one.
Oh, Guardian of the Universe is great.
I've seen Guardian of the Universe.
They only get better.
And that was only because it was randomly on Hulu and I had 2 hours to kill.
Yep.
So it's like, oh, I heard this on MIFV. I bet I'll enjoy this movie.
Yeah. But that's what's wacky about Gamera. Now he's getting an anime. So we'll see how that goes.
Why not? It's working for everybody else.
I mean, yeah, he's joining the anime club now because Godzilla has an anime. Kong has a anime. And, well, no, Kong had an anime in the 60s, so I have to retract that. And now Gamera is finally getting one. So the big 3.
Now Gamera just needs a Hanna-Barbera cartoon.
Oh, boy. Oh, boy.
Oh, my.
Oh, my.
Anyway.
All right, and until next time, Kaiju Lovers.
In the meantime, this has been Drew.
This is Jacob.
And we'll catch you in the next frame.
Jimmy, cue the credits.
Thank you for listening to the Monster Island Film Vault, a podcast produced and hosted by Nate Marchand. If you want to join the discussion and be heard on the show, we'd love to hear from you. So email us at feedback@monsterislandfilmvault.com. Our website is monsterislandfilmvault.com. Follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Monster Island Film Vault, and on Twitter, where our handle is @TheMonsterIsla1. You can subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, and TikTok. Follow Jimmy from NASA on Twitter at NASAJimmy, and our many other colorful characters using the links in the show notes. The podcast logo was created by Tyler Souls from TylerDrawsComics.com. Our theme song is Wanderer on the Offensive, live edit by B33J, Sarax, Juan Madrono, and Nonsensical Lexus, which is a remix of Counterattack Battle with the Colossus and The Opened Way Battle with the Colossus by Kootani from the video game Shadow of the Colossus. All film and audio clips belong to their respective copyright holders and no infringement is intended or implied. Please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and or Podchaser to spread the word about the show. You can also support us by joining MIFV MAX on Patreon. The Monster Island Film Vault is a Moonlighting Ninjas media production. Sayonara!